Hello, it's Scott Manley here with Mechanical Jeb 2.0 Part 2. We have kerbins on the surface of the moon. We need to return them to space, so we have the ascent autopilot set for a 30-kilometer orbit. And that should get us nicely into space. Of course, it's not going to be space in anywhere near this, but we're going to let the rendezvous autopilot handle the whole thing. So let's engage the autopilot. Off it goes. I think I landed in a very odd place. It looked like I was balanced on top of a rock or something. Maybe one of those invisible rocks was actually doing something. Who knows? I think I might have... Now I think about it, I think I've turned off surface scatter again. Every time I get a new version, surface scatter gets turned off. And then everyone asks why they don't have surface scatter when I turn it on again. Because you have surface scatter, it hits your CPU hard and you can't actually crash into it, so it's not that interesting. Anyway, let's do time acceleration. Time acceleration, that's pretty fast. Yeah. And it goes, and it goes, and it goes. So it's just going to circularize my orbit. I mean, in theory, you don't need to be pushing any buttons here because Mechanical Jeb will do it all for you. It's actually much harder. Mechanical Jeb is vastly harder and more complex than Mechanical Jeb 1 because it kind of integrates with the maneuver node system. And there are many, many more options, but many, many more complexities. So let's watch it make this adjustment to its orbit. And estimated burn 3, 2, 1. Oh, excellent. Let's just abort. That's us pretty close to where we want to be, right? Yes, it's trying to get a 3. It's trying to do a perfect orbit. Like 29. You see, that's the kind of orbit I need. I don't care. Right, so we have rendezvous guidance. So we need to select a target. Set as target. Let's kill the ascent guidance and we'll leave the maneuver planner in. And we'll just turn on autopilot and see what happens. So it has generated a maneuver node. And what it's doing first is, of course, aligning the planes. The planes shall align, and then we can rendezvous. And I'm gonna keep it in this mode mainly. I mean, you can come out and watch it. One of the nice things about Mechanical Jeb, of course, is you can largely trust it to do things while you admire the scenery. What is it doing? I should probably cut it to time warp 1. See that rotation? That is where you can do these attitude adjustments. If you think your spacecraft is too sensitive, then these are all things that you can adjust. Go and look up a text on engineering. You can probably figure this out. Okay, it says planning a transfer for intercept. So now what's it going to do? It's going to do another... Oh, I guess I was very lucky. I ended up just behind it. Which means I'm going to totally catch up on it. Nice. What does it say? Separation 0.1 kilometers. Ah! Mechanical Jeb, you're doing me proud, I say. And so it shall accelerate round. Let's actually come out of map mode. And it says, planning to match velocities at closest approach. So there we go. We're coming in. And we're going to get really close. Hopefully it won't hit. There's 30 seconds. It just needs 1 second of burn. The new lander is there. And... excellent. 156... 150... whatever. Now, of course, this spacecraft doesn't actually have the bits and pieces to... Plotting intercept over 100... Wait, what does that say? I'm not sure what it's thinking. You know what? I need to bring up a maneuver window to see what it's doing. Planning to match velocities at closest approach. Okay, so it's bringing us in really close now. And there's Minmus in the background. Sparkling, I guess. Maybe it's another planet, actually. I think Okay, so it's going to do another velocity match in 1 minute and 22 seconds. So let's time accelerate a little. Actually, I'm kind of concerned that I've adjusted the time warp, and that doesn't seem to be adjusting these maneuver nodes that it's generating. It's going to put us really close here. I foresee a number of broken solar panels in the near future for MechJeb users. Okay, right. Come on. Okay, autopilot done. That's a pretty darn close approach. Okay, so I'm going to set as the target. We can kill the rendezvous guidance. We do control from here. Right. Control from here, yep. And docking autopilot. Bring the docking autopilot up again. Turn on RCS. Autopilot enabled. And look at this thing go. It's going to come... What's it going to do? It seems to be traveling away. I'm not sure what it's thinking. I guess it's giving it some room before adjusting and coming back in. 8.7. I knew we should probably turn it back to regular time because time acceleration does not help me. And this is really, really dark, but I can't really do anything about it because we are on the dark side of the planet. I can mouse over things and you can see where they are. Moving in for the kill. I'm going in for the kill, as LaRue once said. And the docking port camera, totally useless in this case. In fact, can I close that? No, yeah, I need to deactivate. Deactivate docking camera. Okay, that's us. So now, of course, we're going to bring our crew back. Bring a crew back to the spaceship. EVA. There we go. Oh, look, he doesn't have far to go this time. Wait. There. Bring some light so you can actually see what's going on. Oh, that happened fast. EVA. Lights on. Let go. And get on board. So now we can leave this thing in orbit, I guess. Actually, yes, undock. And it's given me control of the wrong one. This is the one we want. And we'll just fire the engines to go backwards. So now we are in orbit around the moon and we want to plan an escape. I have no idea if there's a way to do this, actually. So I wonder... what would be the best way? Match planes with target, Hoffman, transfer, fine tune, intercept target, match velocities. Yeah, there's no like escape burn option, is there? So I guess it's time for a maneuver node, right? So standard maneuver is here, add maneuver. Bring this out, drag it up until I escape. Excellent. Now, we can of course bring up the maneuver node editor if we want to fine-tune these things, but we don't need to. There is another plugin that gives you fine-tuned maneuver node editing. Now, what we want, of course, is to get our periaps down, but not so low that it kills the spacecraft. And this is going to be something of a gamble. 192, so let's keep adding 174. 121, you can see it's fine-tuning these things. 88, that's still too low. 57, 42, 27 might be a little high. Let's make that 0. I'm just fine adjusting these things. Okay, 30 kilometers. That might work. So now we just do execute next node and it will fly it for us. And again, you see it flying around. We can... Where's the spacecraft that we're leaving behind? There it is there. The new lander is there. New lander, like Zoolander. we'll see what we finally get. Yeah, there's no return to kerbin autopilot that I can see. But that shouldn't be too hard. Okay, I'm going to turn off the RCS as well. And we fly past this thing. We're going to need 200 meters per second. Of course, you can watch it happening very, very quickly. The actual margins on this spacecraft are pretty tight. I was very impressed that I managed to get a first stage that's almost exactly what I need to get to the moon. Obviously, this has a little more fuel, you know, we could have used. But the launcher, I quite like the launcher in the end. Although I had to turn off part clipping to make it work. And actually, look at how close I am to a perfect escape orbit as well. Goodness. And what's it gonna do? What's it gonna do? What's it gonna do? How is my final periaps? 32 kilometers. Okay. So now we're gonna do time warp. Okay, so we are now on the verge of leaving the SOI, so let's just finish that time warp so that we show ourselves departing. Come on, come on, come on, we're almost there, 50, there we go. Okay, so now we have periaps of 32 kilometers, and if you remember, I've been doing this whole deadly re-entry thing, so 32 kilometers might be okay for a regular probe from like low kerbin orbit and everything, but we are coming in at 3 kilometers per second, so that is probably going to be a little deep. So what I'm going to do is go to the maneuver planner and select change periaps, set the new periaps to about 36 kilometers, schedule the burn 100 seconds from now, click go. So it actually creates a maneuver node, and now I can execute that node. And you see that you don't need to now correct your periaps when, you know, at apoaps and vice versa. It'll do it for you wherever in the orbit you need it to, right? Which is kind of useful if you're falling towards the planet and the next apoaps is after you've burned up in the atmosphere. So let's bring this up again. There, oh, it's done the burn already, and I completely didn't notice it. I'm a terrible, terrible, terrible pilot. Okay, so now we don't need the landing guidance. We have our custom info window, and all we want to do is set ourselves retrograde, and we shall fall towards the surface. Now, as I said, deadly re-entry is enabled in this, so we want to, well, once we get down, there we go, 151, okay, retrograde. Now, I'm going to aerobrake around this atmosphere once. I'm going to retract the panels, of course, because that's silly to leave those out. Now, I'm not expecting to re-enter from this. I've tried this a couple of times, but you do not re-enter on this approach. What's going to happen, however, and I'm running this at 4 times time acceleration, is we'll get a nice re-entry flare, but then we'll pass through the atmosphere and fly out the other side. Of course, I will slow it down to regular speed so we can appreciate the awesomeness of the re-entry effects and the novelty value, etc, etc, etc. Isn't that great? Notice I have the engine on the bottom there. If we're going to get this down in one piece, we are going to have to use the engine, but this is an aerobrake pass, and we're going to use the engine on the next pass to really slow ourselves down. So look, we're flying through. You see our vertical speed is now going up again. So that's now us flying out of the atmosphere. That's fine. So let's just do time acceleration. And we're going to need the time warp. Oh, warp helper. There we go. I'm going to set it to warp to apoaps when we finally get out of the atmosphere. And this is going to take a little while. Actually, we do need to warp to apoaps, but before that, we're going to need a change periaps maneuver node at the next apoaps so that we use the least amount of fuel. Not that we're saving fuel or anything like that, but it just seems to be good practice to do the most efficient thing possible. So I'm going to set up my maneuver. Let's actually do that again. Actually, remove all nodes. Go. There, we've got a maneuver node. And then execute next node. I don't actually need the time warp, it will do it for me. Again, you see it's going to do this quick little time warp here, and all that's doing is it's lifting my apoaps or periaps up just high enough that I'm not going to plunge full on into the atmosphere. There we go. We can of course admire it from the dark side of the planet in the shadow, which means we can barely see it. Look, there's all the pieces there. Of course, we're not really needing those solar panels at all. They are just a tiny amount of thrust. Okay, so now we are going to, of course, fly around again, right? And this time we're probably going to use the autopilot, or we're going to use the rocket, sorry, to complete our final descent. So time accelerate. Let's of course watch this from the outside because it looks far better like that. We're coming in full throttle. Actually, we're not coming in full throttle at all. We are just entirely using the acceleration of gravity. So I'm going to fire my engines at in a direction 270 and 45-degree inclination, right? And we're going to wait until we start getting down kind of low before this happens. What we're going to do is wait for the... oh, yes, I've got to click on this. There we go, time warp. So we're going to kind of concentrate on going up and back. The idea being that we don't want to... Well, you know what, I better correct this here. There we go, execute again. The idea being that plunging too deep into the atmosphere is just as deadly, and basically by going upwards we buy ourselves a little more time. So watch the periaps value here and watch the apoaps value. We won't skip through the atmosphere this time, but we will hopefully get a little bit of flattening out in our trajectory before we fall straight down. 35. Actually, you know what I need is custom window editor. I want to see my surface vertical speed. Minus 63, minus 62. You know what? I'm going to start firing this rocket now. So I'm going to flatten out my trajectory and slow myself down so that I don't fall too deep into the atmosphere. Isn't that beautiful? We can just keep this burning. Actually, we can probably just burn this... there, we'll just let that go for a little second. And you see, now that we're travelling below orbital velocity, our vertical speed starts to drop. But that's okay. We're probably not going to see much in the way of re-entry flare this time because, of course, this whole thing is highly vulnerable to, well, basically burning up. And that's why I'm going to fire this engine. And we don't want it to fall too quickly. That's the idea. We want to experience the braking action of the atmosphere for as long as possible. So if I keep my vertical speed not too high, then we shall get through the atmosphere. Now, obviously, in a real spacecraft, you tend to do this not with engines, but by aerodynamic skipping. And that is not the case here, obviously. I should try this with Ferrum Aerospace, but I don't know how well it works with dangerous re-entry. Well, we'll see how well that does, but it'd be nice. I don't even know if the capsules in FAR actually have the aerodynamic properties of a real capsule either. There, 1700 meters per second. We really want to just bring this whole thing down safely. I could jettison this now, but since I'm needing it to actually slow my trajectory, you can skip this top one through a couple of times. It will land safely, even though there's no heat shield on there. But having the engine on there, I might as well use it. You know, if you use it or lose it, right? And I'm not even seeing any re-entry flares here. Looks like we might. It looks like we're going to go into that sea over there. Aha! There, look, now even the engine can't counteract the force of gravity, and I'm starting to fall down. So I could just leave this thing burning, and I shall descend to a reasonable speed, and then ultimately land this sucker, as they say. It probably means I should move my parachutes down so that I can actually fire them while the engine's still attached. 1300 meters per second. 1200, do you think that's safe? I don't know. Could get really bad very quickly if it's not. I'm gonna just burn out all my fuel and hope that this survives. The suicide burn, by the way, doesn't appear to be particularly accurate. I tried to use it earlier and it killed me badly, but then again it wasn't a planet with atmosphere, so it's entirely possible that suicide burn only works in a vacuum, or that it is indeed bugged because this is an early version. It is not saving windows. That is a current known bug. It will be fixed in release, so you will be able to save your custom windows for laters eventually. Okay, I think we're cool here. Let's just let this fall through the atmosphere at 800 meters per second. We might get a bit of heating, but we should be alright. I'm just going to wait until we get low enough and then burn out. Actually, you know what I should do? Set this to now to 90. Execute. And we can time accelerate a little. Yep, velocity dropping. It's nice that we have all this extra fuel to abuse. Yeah, or you could just fit heat shields to that thing. That would have been great, except I forgot to in the first place. Also note that the version I'm going to publish this model, but this fuel tank here is not stock, so I'm going to drop it and replace it with a small RCS tank under here. That'll make more sense. Okay, 10 kilometers. Execute. Why do I keep doing this? Oh, yeah. I keep meaning to do time accelerate. There we go. Time accelerate as we fall down to the ground. Parachutes go up. And our speed goes down and we're falling to the ground. And yeah. It's 765. Okay, and we'll just get down and then burn those engines for one last moment as we near splashdown. 3, 2, 1. Thrust. 6 meters per second. There, that should get us down, and then we can turn off the engine. Nice, rather safe landing after all that. There. Okay. So that is Mechanical Jeb 2. Now, some other things people asked. Can it do interplanetary transfers? Yes, it can. There is a whole interplanetary, not the maneuver node editor, but the maneuver planner does let you actually generate movement transfer to the target, and you can do that transfer to another planet, right? And so you can select the planet and it'll generate the maneuver node for you. However, you may have to spend a small eternity in Kerbin orbit waiting for this to happen. The other thing that people asked about is, does it work with funky maneuver node or docking node positions? And well, here we have a space plane. This is an Ares 4A, which I have managed to cajole into Kerbin orbit. And well, actually I cheated and put that space station there, but I got it into orbit, and now we're going to demonstrate that the docking system does in fact work. However, there is a drawback here. So yeah, we basically use control from here, and we select the target on the space station. We bring out, we find the docking autopilot, which always evades me. There it is there. Now, we want this thing to dock manually. Bring up the camera, and we probably also, there we go, there's it starting. Watch those engines fire as it spins around and burns through fuel very, very quickly. As efficient as it is, it's overcompensating quite a lot by the looks of things. Now, you can see in the docking camera that it's lining up pretty well, but it does oscillate back and forth. Now, if I bring out the resources, the monopropellant is shrinking at a horrendous rate. It's shrinking at about 1 unit per second, which means it's going to burn through its entire supply in about 2 minutes. And it's coming in, but it's being too cautious. In fact, it's probably going to run out of fuel before it gets there. So you're faced with something of a quandary. If you don't get in quickly enough, if you run out of fuel, you basically will be unable to dock, and therefore will be unable to replenish fuel. So you really need to set this thing up and then turn the autopilot on and off, I think is the best way to do it. And yeah, you see we're down to like 33 seconds worth of fuel. It's coming in very slowly, but we are probably not going to make it at the rate we are moving. So what you do is strategically disable this and just let it float in. Make sure you turn off your RCS as well. Now you will have you will have some sort of residual velocity here, and so you'll start to drift off center. So when you think you're going a little too far off center, turn it back on again and you'll be okay. But just for a little while. Oh, and yes, with great timing, we have gone from night to day, and suddenly everything is dark. Great planning again on my part. Not only did I plan a trip to the moon during an eclipse, but I also planned a docking during sunset. And we're coming in. In fact, I think I'm just going to leave this off and hope that it forms a solid mate there. Coming in, and I can see this in mine. There we go. We've got a dock. So yeah, docking does work, but you have to appreciate that the docking might end up burning through all your fuel. You know, don't just rely on it. It's just like everything on MechJeb. You think it's going to work fine, and 99% of the time it does, and the other time it completely screws you over. But anyway, that's the way of things in Kerbal Space Program, right? Regardless, that's everything I'm going to show for MechJeb. We'll be back with something else some other time. Until then, I am Scott Manley. Fly safe.